thought, if I'm going to do this for a long time, I have to determine my path. So I still haven't found the piece of paper, but I basically put 9 dots on a piece of paper in a circle, and I mapped out pretty much where I wanted to go.
Welcome to another episode of Optometry Profits Revealed, and I'm your host, Peter Precht. Today, we are with a 45-year veteran, Karen Michaelson, who is an ABO speaker, an author. She's a founding board member of the Optical Pros of Minnesota. We're going to spend some time talking about that. It's a brand new group. And she's also a board member for the Vision of Hope, which is local mission related. We'll talk a little bit more about what they're doing and their goals. We'll connect it with consulting with care. Without any further ado, Karen Michaelson, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about the precipitous of what brought together the Optical Pros of Minnesota. And you said the launch was in December. Give me an idea about who's part of that and what you guys are doing and all that good stuff.
Thank you. I love the press for that. It's been a long time coming in Minnesota. We haven't had a group for our optical professionals, and really the idea of it and the brainchild behind it was my father was an optician for 76 years, and he started the Minnesota Optician Society back in the 70s, I think. And it went on for many years and dissolved probably in the early 2000s. And I decided that I wanted to bring it back. So it's been on my mind, a bit of a tribute to my father, I guess. And I spoke with some, really close friends of mine that knew my dad and that are really committed to the industry. And we have a great group of people that came together. It's still, I say, we're just newly pregnant with it, but it's coming along. And we launched in December with a great uh, online three course ABO meeting, and just it's rolling. So super excited about it.
I love the educational pieces that we began with as well in December because and the participation. There's people that are looking for their credits, but they're also looking to hear from some new voices and to hear some new philosophies. I know I came away from new philosophies from the courses that I participated in December as well, which I think is awesome. Talk a little bit about Vision of Hope because I think that's huge, and I don't talk enough about it when I do my podcast. So this is a good time since you're a board member.
Thank you, Peter. So Vision of Hope is fairly new to me. I uh, attended the Optical Association, the leadership conference last month. And it's actually kind of an interesting story because the gal that was running Vision of Hope, her name is Sue Shire. I actually was a consultant in a practice that she worked in 30 years ago, and I haven't seen her, didn't know, and we're talking to each other on the phone. Finally, figured out who each other was. Small world, big industry, right?
Right.
But anyway, it was, what really grabbed me was the local missions that we can do. I have always had a international mission on my bucket list, and it's still sitting in the bucket. But Vision of Hope is something that we can bring to our local communities in every state. And so it's really a passion for me to give back and to help. And it's going to give me an avenue to do that. And I'm going to be the chair for the marketing or the outreach uh, component of Vision of Hope. And hopefully we can really get some things rolling in all the states. Great backing with a couple frame vendors and lens vendors and labs, and it can only get bigger and better. So it's really exciting.
It is. I love the fact that it is like you hit on the right away is local, because that means something different to everyone.
It does.
But but by the same by the same token, there's how many new associations were there at that? Uh,
like
was quite a
like
few.
10, I think 10 or 11.
Right,
They
right.
Yeah, and that's great,
So
it's
exactly, you begin thinking of them getting traction this year and the impact that it's gonna have for the work that you guys are getting ready to do with the Vision Hope. That's yeah, it's that I think it's gonna be spectacular. Not like I said, just getting your feet wet with it now, but what lies ahead is awesome. Um, we were talking about leadership, and I want to talk about your inclusive approach to leadership because you mentioned it when you were putting together, when you guys were putting together the Optical Pros of Minnesota, that you wanted to make sure that you're bringing those O's together. And tell me what that means and tell me how you see that happening.
Oh, definitely. Thank you. So Minnesota is an unlicensed state, or it's not a licensed state. So it's always been a struggle, as we know in many states it is, even the licensed states. But we in Minnesota we have a fair number of groups, and the third O, or I'll just say eye care professional, doesn't really have an umbrella to get out of the rain in from, or just be a part of. So when we did this, we didn't want to just be the Opticians, Association of Minnesota. We wanted to be the optical professionals of Minnesota. And what that means, Peter, is that whether you're a contact lens tech, or you're an assistant, or you're working in the lab, we all need each other. This is team. So we're really, whether it's you're a rep, it doesn't matter. We are all in this industry for the same reason, and it's for the patient and it's for the outcome. And that was one of my stipulations of being a part of it, and wanting to give my time. And again, at OAA, better together. So hopefully we can achieve that.
I think it's in motion. I think you're seeing it happen. But it is. It, I think it's kind of cool to even go. Just the idea of for instance, in Pennsylvania, we're potentially approaching the para-optometric group, because there's a lot of similarities. Obviously, they're not doing the exact same things that opticians are doing, but, there's some cross educational things that could be very meaningful and certainly uh, multiple topics that relate to everything, like you talked about. And and I'm kind of a fan of finding ways of interrelating. You'll see places where ophthalmology has a strong relationship with a dispensary or their own dispensary, but it's sort of rare.
It's rare.
It's usually an optometric environment, good, bad, or ugly. That's the situation, and familiarizing all aspects of this, I think are smart, and especially when you're starting from scratch.
Well, and it's
It cast the net wide as well. There's that aspect as well.
It's not just educational either. It's really about respect and understanding what everybody's doing in the practice, because there's a metaphorical and a literal uh, line in the practice where there's carpet and there's tile, and that's in the whole industry, where we've got the medical side and we've got the sales side or the optical side, and we need to bring that together. So we are willing to help each other more, and we are willing to cross over, because the bench is not as strong as it used to be. So it's about doing that.
That is true, and you'll run into that with, "Oh, I don't wanna work in the dispensary because I'm selling." You're not selling, you're educating, and you're uncovering, and then the patients tell you what they wanna do. It's not I mean, it is your job to categorize that and implement it into their life in the most effective way. That's very much your job, and you do need to learn that. But by the same token, that's not selling. It's different. And when you talk about the more you integrate those medical components of it, so it is all together, it it it's different. Why do we, there's a reason why people are having problems with product that is ordered with no assistance. They're sending it back and just send it back and get another one. Well, some people won't do that. So, there does end up being a problem and a disconnect. You mentioned that your dad optician for, did you say 76 years?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get my head around that. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there were breaks and pauses and maybe
Actually, there was
different
no break or pause
roles.
ever. He started when he was
Wow.
17 in Canada, and started in lacrosse, I think. I it's
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it started in La Crosse, I believe, was Soderbergh's, if I remember right, and then moved my mom and my sister up to the cities and started in St. Paul and retired twice officially, and then the last time was just an unfortunate situation. And uh, but he was still working at 93, working 3 days a week. Uh, if I tell anybody one thing about my dad is if you've gotten to meet him or you have actually seen a picture, my dad had billboards, he had bus benches, and there's probably not too many that you talk to, Andrew, uh, that will tell you I've been on a bus bench or on a billboard. But yes, he's a pretty fun icon here, and
That's awesome. I honestly, the Twin Cities themselves are very rich in history, in optical in general. It's to this day, obviously, multiple entities still there, still very strong.
mhm.
It's really cool to think your dad was involved in that as an optician for all of those years. Most people are floating in and out of it, but he remained connected with patients. So he had his thumb on the beat of all of those waves, you know? I mean, imagine looking it through his eyes and watching, that Dior look, it was huge from the 80s come back again, or even all the, drills, notches, compression mount was new design, but still that was, to a degree, technology that was all taking place in the 50s, and he was all a part of it, which I think is just really, really
Yeah, he
awesome.
was a great bench optician. He was great with people, and that's what I saw right away was that's what I want to do. I want to do what you're doing. And he kept saying, "No, no, you don't." I said, "Yes, I do." And that's what I want to bring to the folks that I work with and that I cross. I really try to bring those things forward.
Yeah, and before we connect directly into consulting with care, you do have new approaches. Let's just talk as much as you want to about connecting the dots, because I think that philosophy is awesome. So explain that to me.
So I kind of ran into it actually. So back when I started in the industry, I was 15 years old, my first job, and came out of my father's mouth. You can come into the industry, and I'm going to tell you a couple things to help you get your first job. You're going to go to school, and don't embarrass me. Those are the three things he told me. And so I did my best, and I realized at about 20, when all my friends were coming out of college, I'd already been doing this for 5 years, and I thought, if I'm going to do this for a long time, I have to determine my path. So I still haven't found the piece of paper, but I basically put 9 dots on a piece of paper in a circle, and I mapped out pretty much where I wanted to go, dispense, get into a lab, get into just work my way through, so I would be in the seat where I'm at right now and have the tenure and the history and the all of the things that I've learned in all the facets to be able to share. And it just really came together in a number of ways. I spoke at the OAA leadership conference on behalf of the Optical Women's Association, and it was a keynote. And they asked me what they wanted me to call it or what I wanted to call it, and I was like, I don't know, connecting the dots. It was about um, career longevity and the way those things, it's a longer story, but the way it all came about. And then as I was searching for quotes and I was listening, Steve Jobs, you know his uh, speech at uh, the graduation of I'm forgetting the school now, but Harvard, uh, was you can't connect the dots moving forward, you have to connect them going back. So you collect them and you connect them. And that's really where I'm at is, everybody has such a collection of dots. And so for me, the care consulting is a bit of an acronym, of course, being my name's Karen, which has been really fun for the last 5 years, by the way. But but I would say if I could change it to the letter
Oh,
C, that would probably speak more about where I'm at and what I really love to do in the industry. So that's the care and compassion and career longevity is my soapbox.
the care compart, not only did it come through from your dad, but and connecting the dots, to bridge it to even to discussions that I've had with Cesar Rodriguez, which we were talking about as well, that you're in motion. You know, a plan is wonderful, but it needs to be in motion. And then to connect this to Charlene, who's a fantastic partner, is the execution part of it. It's not just the action, it's the execution in a sequential way that's benefiting you and who you're working with. Because, you can have wonderful ideas, but if they're scattered all over the place, that doesn't mean anything.
No, the focus and pulling it together is actually the most difficult part right now because I've had such a plethora and a wide breadth of experiences. And to focus on one or two areas, that's where, the hard work comes, right? Um, Putting it down on paper or really realizing where, how do you affect the bottom line, but yet make a difference from a human perspective and a compassionate perspective, because a lot of that gets lost. So,
It does. It Well, it's funny. It gets lost, but there's no question about it that the new opticians is the very first thing that attracts them to the part of the job.
mhm.
Um, because let's face it, there's a lot of fun rewards, and I talk about it a lot on this show. But there's a lot of fun rewards to being in that moment when people see clearly, and opticians can sometimes take it for granted that they're the first thing people are seeing clearly. But none of us take it for granted. We could watch videos of kids putting their glasses on for
I
the
cry
first
every
time
time,
all
and it
day,
never gets old.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, think of some of you connect some of those stories that your dad had to your coming up, and the way your dad approached it was like, hey, get in there and get muddy. And here you are tinting that Wallman.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. That's kind of cool. Or was it? I
No,
mean,
it was cool. Yeah. I mean, that's where I started. And, thinking if I would have stayed at Wellman's for all those years, I would have been a millionaire, it was an ESOP. So, and Marty Bassett didn't let me forget that. But, I really feel that, yeah, when I go back and I think about the things that I didn't really put focus on and, you don't write down and you don't keep. Fred Soderbergh used to play poker in our basement, and these are icons. These are people that
right,
started things, and it's
right.
really, to me, it means so much. And people that want to listen and hear it is great, and how I can bring it forward. But on the other hand, Peter, when you've been in the industry a long time, there are some people that go, well, you're kind of old and washed up. You've been around so long. But being very progressive and understanding what's going on in the industry, but still trying to keep that human that human component. And I think that's where I fought a little bit with understanding all this, how do we mesh it together? And we just need to allow it to happen.
I completely agree. And it is happening. It's active, it's in motion, and that I think is really it's really some of the most beautiful stuff that I see taking place is when people are able to reinvent the actual moment where you're uncovering,
Yeah.
because it's not always ideal. I mean,
No.
sometimes there'll be a situation where
No.
an optician can't be there.
Mhm.
And there's all of a sudden there's three people coming out of an exam room, and you got another 2 hours that you're still open. So it's nice to be able to have remote connections, nice to be able to have tools that you can use. But like we talked about a little bit earlier, how do you use them? Okay, here's a tool. How do you use it? And I know I found myself in that place a lot with technology where eh, I but I'm not the kind that's gonna, how can I put this? Read a book and then do it. I'm going to grab it and do
Yeah.
it. And I'm probably going to make mistakes, and I don't care. I'm going to learn how to do it via my mistakes. But that's, I think that's okay. And I think that that's all part of creative aspect of things. But I do think that it is a really awesome time to connect all these things, connecting the dots, that's something you're doing, but I like the idea that you're talking to people planning it forward, because you and I know this industry pulls at your heart and your mind. You become attached to it in a lot of different ways.
very much. I mean, all my friends, I don't know. I actually thought about this as I'm writing my book that I've been writing for 4 years, and it's pivoted 3 times. It's when you take something away, what that person does, who are they? And that's something that's very interesting at the time in my career I'm in, is determining and who am I without eye care. And that's probably why I'm still in it, because, well, I still love it, I'm still crazy and I love it, but yet I don't want to be without it. It's not, it's just different. It's different phases and facets and avenues, and you can't be afraid. But I think the newer people coming in, it's it's a really wonderful industry. I always say, there's blood and guts, there's fashion, there's technology, there's, if you're a
Right,
geek, you can geek out on,
right,
you can do the formulas if you want, you can do whatever. But and I think that's what we really need to get back into, breathing the life in to create this bench. And then also the online portion of it, we need to grab it by the horns and be a part of it,
right.
or they're going to continue to um, continue to lose it. So we just need to figure out a way
And
to do it.
yeah, the click and buy revolution is here.
Yep.
It's we're well immersed in it. How you choose to cope with it is entirely up to you and your practice and the opticians, and that is interesting bridge.
Hmm.
And that's part of it's part of where where we're trying to think in terms of going forward, but we're also trying to make sure that there's instilled knowledge and education in this process.
Sure.
um, and then also in a more direct way, relating to some of those nerd type opticians that we were just talking about. Well, I'm not specifically asking them to be warm and fuzzy, but just not make fun of people that are wrong coming up through the ranks and don't know what they're talking about. There's some pretty aggressive tones on multiple forums, particularly on Facebook, and I will not say the forums, but
Hmm.
we know them.
Yeah.
And and it really, we could do a little bit better job being ambassadors, which is a term that I've heard a few times and I really do enjoy and I don't take lightly. Uh, there's a giant chasm when we hear states numbers of 3 4,000 opticians and there's 3 400 that are part of the association, and it's a licensed state. And again, I'm not calling out any specific state. I'm talking about scenarios that are everywhere across it. And you know why? It's because the education, the fun, the aspect of it isn't appealing. People aren't interested. They're not bridging that gap. They're not reaching to them. And I'm here to tell you that people that have been opticianing for 2 or 3 or 4 years are way more interested in remote frame styling than somebody who's been doing it for 30 or 40 or 50 years. I get that.
Yeah.
I do. I understand that.
Yeah.
But don't 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 go throwing stones at them and being mean to them because that's something they want to do.
No. Right.
You
And
know,
I came
that's not right.
I came away from the OAA. It was interesting because I wasn't sure what to expect. I came away just so blown away by the students and the brilliance,
That's awesome.
and they could be in any uh, you know any occupation, anywhere they want to be. They are that smart. These kids that are coming up through the schools, and that is what energized me. And sitting down and talking to these folks, and just realizing that, what, Peter, if you owned a practice and you didn't have that optician, I had to go home because my baby was sick or something, wouldn't you rather me as a patient do have a connection with an optician video wise than me going on to a site that isn't benefiting us and your patient isn't getting the care? One of the things I always say is, you trust us with your eye care, why didn't you trust us with your eyewear? And we can make that
Right.
in person, or we can do it this way. We can. And it's
Right.
never going to replace it, just like LASIK didn't take away all of our patients.
And like we were told it would.
Right, right.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, now we
Well,
just got all
RK
those
before that,
crabby.
Oh, RK's
Yeah,
here.
now
Just
we
ready. No one's going to wear glasses in 2 years.
now we have crabby
Okay.
Plano plus twos that we're dealing with all the time because, you know, so
Right. Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, it is. boy, the interesting mix that's coming around, and you and I, dare we get too far into it, but we know the vending machine is evolution wave is just going to get more and more precise, and it's certainly going to upset more and more apple carts in this whole process. So get engaged, be the resource, be involved, because the independents are poised in a unique way to reach across those bridges, particularly to opticians, but certainly through ophthalmology. Like we were talking about, bridging some of those gaps, bringing things together, plugging in certain aspects of mobile optician work, like we were talking about the safety work, and even the on-site safety work, which we love. I think that that's
I
awesome.
think there's to be some hand
And
holding
then
with those doctors too, because I've heard, well, if I offer online and they go online, but they've never been online before, what if they go over to another site? And I said, well, that's just like hiring somebody and not training them. You train them and they leave, but what if you don't train them and they stay? So it's six of one, half dozen of another, but at least there's an option for them, and it's you, and it's not just the other ones. So,
right. Oh, so what if they're going to buy the exact same frames that they left
well, not even
your
that, but if I haven't been
your
shopping
practice with?
online for glasses, and now I'm like, wow,
Well,
Dr. Precht, I can get him through his office, but I heard about this other one. Why can't I just get him there? If that was not where they were driven, that's what I've heard. And I said, well, you it's always
that's fair.
the why not, like, or the reason, not to,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it's the why should we do it? So,
Well, and again, those reaching out and exploring in that territory, those working with Frames Library, Optify, they are experiencing increases, but they're also throwing their patients out there with the here's a link, do your gig. you know, or I don't care who you talk to or whatever. And you talk about ready to lose somebody, they could click right off of that and they're done. Well, this looks better over here. I'm going to buy this over there, doc. Sorry. Oh, I thought I was buying from you. There's a lot of gray areas with how to do it. But at the end of the day, if there's a direct one on one, just like we're doing right
mhm,
now, that's the way to capture. That is the ultimate way to keep the capture rate, to keep opticians engaged with patients where maybe there was some disengagement. We talked really briefly before we started recording that, hey, it's a real thing that there's opticians out there that were working as opticians 2, 3, 4 years ago. They're frame reps now.
right.
And some of them are, loving life, and it's a great thing. Others struggling, but at the end of the day, they're not doing the optician work they were. And some of them are missing it for sure, as well as patients being, missing the connection with them. So there's that aspect as well. And, some of them want to remain involved at the professional level, and some of them are just going to
Just
coast
yeah.
straight forward being frame reps. It all depends on what you want to do.
Well, and you think
Um,
about all of the opticians, the private equities that have bought up a lot of these practices, and where are all those people? Because they're not out there when, on the hiring side, looking for people. Those people aren't out there, but yet they're not where they were. So, we've got to figure out a way to close that gap, uh,
right.
and make sure that we're helping as many people as we can, to keep the basically keep those, the opticians and the work that we do with the optometrists, right in front of them. Again, trust us with your eye care, trust us with your eyewear is, how do we get them to do that, whether it's face to face or if it's online.
Exactly. And it is care with care. Oh, it's not care when you're remote and far away. Baloney. That's not true. It's extremely wonderful to watch people connect that weren't able to. I see it. I've been a part of it. It is a wonderful thing, and it's fun to see the connection reestablish, even though it is over video. And of course, there's things that you can't do, but believe me, I've seen people hug with their eyes. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll say, just this last thing, I had an experience of a lifetime last year. I volunteered for the American Council of the Blind, their yearly conference. It's about 14 days long. And for 5 days, I worked with the blind, leading them around the hotel and hearing their stories. And I'll tell you, sighted people have nothing on the blind. And when I think about the interactions I had and how that relationship was built, even just bringing them, to the elevator or whatever. You don't need to see to build a relationship. And so that tells me that it can be done. And you just have to experience it. You have to understand it. You have to get through something or go through something sometimes to totally understand how it can work.
Completely. It's true. You have to hear a story to believe it, see it, think of it. The one of my favorite optician stories, and I don't believe I've told it on the podcast, but if I have, I'll edit it out promptly and say goodbye. But no, really, this was a cool story because the boy was struggling tremendously with a set of glasses that he was fit repeatedly with very clunky sets of glasses, and she finally the optician that was telling me the story put him in silhouettes, and everyone laughed at her, but nobody ever saw him again. And his complaint was he didn't like feeling the glasses. So she listened. And, as long as people are listening, like you talked about, two ears, in this case, no eyes, uh, like you were talking about, someone who's completely blind, I had conversations with a gentleman named Ken Brandt, who wrote a book over the last several
And
years, and
you
you're
can,
probably familiar with him on on LinkedIn. And whew, he'll open your
oh, he will
eyes. I'll tell
absolutely.
you.
We've had a
I'll
couple
tell you.
conversations.
Mhm.
Hmm.
No doubt about
Yeah,
it. And, this is gonna sound awful, but I do think it's important for opticians to have discussions with people that are blind. Um,
it
again,
was
there's a
the most
that's
amazing
a
experience.
whole
Changed
other
my life.
conversation, but it is important. It really, really
Changed my life
is.
for sure.
The last thing I want to just touch on really, really quick, and just to wrap it up, because we touched so briefly on it, but just talk briefly about what, and you kind of have been, but you can formally do it about what consulting with care is about, and what you put it together for. And I know we've talked about elements of it, but we can close on that.
Okay, well, so care consulting or consulting with care was really just a entity that I created, an LLC, so I could do some side speaking and side mentoring and consulting through COVID and what have you. But just to have that, I wanted to always have my own business, and because I've always been busy and working and working for others, it wasn't something that I was able to really capitalize on. But I knew someday it would. That's my last dot in my circle, and it really encompasses whatever. I say I use it outside the industry. I speak to groups outside the industry. I do motivational speaking outside, which is really different than inside. But it's really about bringing people together. Any topic, there's no topic off the table because I've experienced so much. I will I'll write a course for you. I'll work with the staff on whatever topic it is. But it's my little world, and it's me and me alone. And it really is an acronym for what I want to leave this industry being known for, and that is care and compassion. Part of this is really fueled by I've had many eye surgeries. I've had a lot of retinal issues, and that also changed how I see things, literally and metaphorically. And I really want to close that gap and do what I can. If I can affect one person a day, that's enough for me. And so I'm not sure where it's going to go, but it's it's going. So I'm going to just take it, and I'll see where it goes.
Oh, it'll keep going. I think you and I are going to be instrumental in several different new states growing, becoming part of, polishing how states grow, state opticians associations. This has only just begun, but it is true. And I think you and I, Charlene, Cesar Rodriguez, many others that I've spoken to on the podcast, they definitely understand reaching towards people that are not only just interested in remote engagement, but people that are interested in using new technologies in a way that they can remain and keep their engagements, possibly build their own client books in that way. And these are the kind of tools that people are going to take advantage of. People are going to open apps and have businesses. It's already happened to a degree, but when it begins to get inside of our industry, it's going to be really, really cool to be a part of it, I think.
Well, and you've I don't know the exact quote, but People don't listen to you until they trust you, and I really believe that there's, you have to have that care and compassion, and you have to not just listen, but you have to hear and look at what's really good and what we can improve upon, and how do we start bridging these gaps. I remember when, just quickly, because it's kind of the same thing, I'm going through a little deja vu, is that when EMR came in and I was consulting at the time, and the older doctors, or the more mature doctors, I should say, they were going to quit. I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to quit? You're an amazing doctor, get a scribe. I don't remember how many scribes I helped hire, because they were just going to be done. And I said, you get to spend time with your patients now. You have a scribe. Now we have scribes that are virtual. So it came around. That shows how old I am, but it's a beautiful thing to see. I love it.
It is. It's fun to see things that'll cycle back around and watch how things change when they do.
Yep.
How we're able to kind of reinvent some of those, engagements and as far as where they're placed and how they can continue and at whatever level people want. Not, unlike your dad, uh, people like yourself, anyone, it's really cool that you get to choose the way that you step away. Um, that's not typical from a lot of opticians in a lot of situations that have been out there, and most certainly in the last several years, including COVID. So, but that's all part of it, and it's the future of opticianry, and it's the future of the industry. So, we've got our work to do, and I think it's wonderful. I think what you're doing is going to connect those dots, for lack of better terms, back down from people that are my age
I hope so.
further downward.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think it will, and that's part of why we're doing what we're doing now. Literally, as far as we're podcasts, but for you to get out and translate that message, practice to practice, place to place, speaking it to people, I think it's going to be huge to relate what they want, because afterwards you can say to them, Where do you see your future?" And what better way to translate it? If they're going to be talking it out loud and explaining it to you, then you can translate it back down and make sure that the right people are hearing it so that they can make the road perfect for these people
Yeah.
as best as we can.
Students that are coming through, when you're sitting with the students and they say, you're the coolest optician I've met. That's pretty cool. That when it's coming from a
It
19
is.
or a 20-year-old, and they're
Exactly.
just like soaking in everything, that's a pretty good feeling. And
Oh, yeah.
that's all really, you want to be able to do is just create, that energy and the passion, help them with the passion to learn more. And they brought that out in me and gave me fire. So that's
Oh, no doubt.
that's bottom line
E-
for me.
Every day I talk to opticians that they bring a light into my day, and they are awesome. So many of them want remote engagement. We're just finding ways to get it to you, you know. So, Karen, thank you so much. This has been absolutely wonderful discussion. Looking forward to how things are going to go and how far both of our associations are going to move. That's going to be tremendous. So,
Well, if I can do anything to
eh,
help, I'm here.
thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
And there'll certainly be posts to, consult with care, and consulting with care, and any other posts that you want to send to me that we can
Okay.
link up with. It would be wonderful. Thank you so much. If any of this resonates, please visit iseeclearly.com or send an email to info@iseeclearly.com. We'll have a practice discussion and determine whether it's a good fit to see if remote styling fits. Thank you so much, Karen. Take good
You're
care.
welcome.
See you, everybody.
Bye.